Welcome back to Colombia Business News Recap. So this week, just in, health reform is dead in Colombia. Petro's health reform, as he called it, legislative initiative to basically have the government take over what in Colombia is called the EPS system, um, which would mean that the he wants to take over the EPS, which are private. They're not really like health insurance. They're kind of like what in the U.S. you'd call an HMO. And so basically the system is that you have these health providing entities that kind of every one signs up with through their employer. And if you are unemployed or maybe you work independently, then you pay the premiums yourself and then they coordinate your care. So that's the system. There are good EPS providers. There are bad EPS providers. There are some that are financially successful, others that have different degrees of solvency and such. But the president wanted to take these over and replace them with government-run community or health clinics that would be in each neighborhood or area. So anyway, I've gone into detail with this in other previous podcast. But basically, yesterday, the Senate killed the plan in committee, 9 votes to 5. And so Petro, another one of his big legislative initiatives has bitten the dust. So far he's batting 0 for 3 with his health reform, his pension reform, and his labor reform. None of those have gone anywhere. He's getting more and more frustrated, and you can tell that by some of his actions and also his statements are getting more strident. But that's the breaking news that happened yesterday in the Senate in Bogota. Um, Moving on to some business news, petroleum company Geopark, which trades on the New York Stock Exchange as GPRK, has announced a $50 million stock buyback plan. Their stock, I think, was last trading, the last time I checked, around about $9.40 a share. And they're offering up to $10 a share to buy that back. Stockholders have until April 17th to take advantage of that offer. Avianca, the airline, has launched 4 weekly flights between Bogota and Quebec. Those, I think, are going to start in June. And then in July, you have new flights 5 times a week between Bogota and Paris. So you're going to be able to fly nonstop with Avianca between Colombia and France. So Global X has launched a new exchange-traded fund, an ETF, and this fund is focused on Colombia Public Debt. The new fund is launching on the BVC, that's BVC, Colombia's stock exchange. So if you are outside of Colombia, then you're going to have to find a way to access opening up an investor account. This is primarily going to be for institutional investors. But that is going to trade on the BVC. It's GXTESCOL. So it's going to track the JP Morgan GBI-EM Colombia Public Local Currency Bond Index. So JP Morgan, of course, is tracking the bonds issued by local governments here in Colombia. And for, again, this is for primarily for institutional investors. And there is now an exchange traded fund to make those easy to access and to bundle those all together. So this is part of a World Bank initiative to develop capital markets in emerging economies. And so that's part of why this is being done. Global X is doing it, but it's being done as part of a World Bank initiative. So La Vaca, which in Spanish means the cow. In Antioquia, which is the one of the largest, probably the largest by population, departments in Colombia. So Colombia has departments just like other countries have states or provinces. In Colombia, they're called departments or departamentos. But anyway, Antioquia, which is where Medellín is the capital and largest city. So President Petro has kind of made some very polemic statements complaining about the road construction projects that were launched during the administration of former President Juan Manuel Santos. And Petro has complained about this road building and said that he'd rather spend the money on other priorities. And he kind of has an initiative that he has wanted to take over. I talk about this with former Vice President Pacho Santos. You can look at that. I really encourage you to listen to that interview. It was amazing. But so Petro has kind of, I don't want to say threatened, but implied that the money that the national government has to put in to finish these highway projects, they're called the 4G projects. He sort of implied that he doesn't want to pay that. And so in Antioquia, the governor, Andres Julian Rendon, and a lot of paisas, people from Antioquia, people from the region, have kind of launched what they call a vaca, which in English you would say pass the plate. And it's a massive initiative. So the federal government, the national government, is supposed to put in about 650 billion pesos still to finish these. They're called 4G, meaning fourth generation highway projects, and they're all under construction. They're kind of close to being finished. They should be finished actually next year unless there's a delay for funding or something like that. And so the paisas have said, well, screw you. If you're not going to put up the money, if you're going to play funny games with us, then we'll just pass the plate and we'll raise it ourselves. One thing I do like about the paisas and the people around Antioquia is they're very civic minded. There's a lot of public-private cooperation that you don't see in many other governments or areas. But anyway, so La Vaca is an initiative that the governor is kind of coordinating, but it's really being coordinated by other civic groups and actors and things like that. And they're trying to raise that money. Now, the national government has said, hey, we're going to put up the money. There are people who are saying, don't panic. And then other people are saying that this is kind of a show to embarrass the president. And that's probably part of it. But anyway, the president has been kind of generating a lot of uncertainty by, there's an initiative for him to take over there's what's called the ANI, the National Infrastructure Agency. He's kind of come out and made some really nasty statements about what he calls technocrats, which are the people that run these organizations in a way that is based on, best practices instead of political whims. And he kind of has attacked those people. And also you have the DNP, the National Planning Department. And Petro wants to be able to veto or to direct investment in public works projects, circumventing those entities that determine based on, I don't want to say science, but based on evaluations and technical evaluations to say where things are needed. So maybe there's a traffic problem over here, so we need to build a highway. And they'll say, okay, let's put this into the budget based on what we've measured versus based on a politician who's trying to give out jelly, as they say down here, marmalade, or some kind of political payback. So Petro has called for his constituent assembly where he wants to kind of rewrite the Constitution. But if he can't get anything passed through Congress, it looks like that's dead. That's kind of why he wants to do that, but it doesn't look like he's going to be able to have the support to call that. So speaking of public works, and for those people who travel a lot to Medellín, the good news is that there's when you leave the international airport up in Rio Negro, there's a big roundabout, and it's a traffic bottleneck. And so the project has already started to build a major interchange there so that people going to and from the city will be able to go straight through to the airport rather than get snarled in that local traffic or that industrial traffic that's headed to the Bogota Medellín freeway or to Guarne or to the north part of the city. Also, Argos Group has, which is the big cement company and also contracting concern, has also submitted paperwork to begin to complete opening up the second part of the Túnel del Oriente, which is the tunnel that goes between the airport and Medellin. So right now it's 2 lanes that go through one tunnel, but when they dug or bored the hole, they actually bored 2 holes so that it can eventually be 4 lanes, but they only finished 1. So right now the traffic is 1 lane each way, but the plan is to begin construction to finish out the other hole that's already there and to pave it and finish it. But then also the major work is they have to build a second bridge. So when you come out of that tunnel on the Medellin side, you're kind of on a bridge, and that bridge is just 1 lane each way. So they need to build a second bridge, and then that's going to make it 4 lanes. So it's going to be 2 lanes each way, because that traffic that's going through that tunnel is already exceeding the projections that the concession initially had for 2030. So that's some good news. Hopefully there's no hiccups in that, and that's going to be a big help to the traffic between Medellin and the airport, and also Rio Negro and those suburban areas to the east. So back to Avianca, they were fined 4.1 billion pesos, just over $1 million US dollars, for giving lower prices to their owned tourism packaging agency called Price Res SAS. And so they were giving better prices, or they were favoring that entity at the expense of other travel agencies, creating unfair competition. So if you purchase certain tickets from Avianca, they would give you a voucher for 150,000 pesos that you can only use at Avianca's travel agency for certain packages that cost more than like 2.5 million pesos or more. So Avianca was fined 4,103,000 pesos. Price Res was fined 882 million pesos, and so that's for unfair competition. Now, the investor confidence is down. We see, according to a Reuters article, foreign direct investment dropped 24.8% in 2023. So I think a lot of this improvisational governments and a lot of this the polemics and the kind of gyrations that we're seeing from Casa Nariño in Bogota from this administration is really scaring investors, especially foreign investors. New house construction fell a stunning 39% year over year for the first 2 months of this year. A lot of that can be related to interest rates are higher. That's certainly true, but not with the foreign direct investment. That's down now. The peso is strong right now compared to the dollar. That's going to be a factor in it. But I think when we talk about long-term projects, and I know of cases where companies have pulled back due to the uncertainty. A local Medellin fiscal or prosecutor has been sentenced to 5 years in prison for defrauding fraud victims. So somebody comes with a case of fraud. They've been ripped off by somebody, and they go to the prosecutor, and then this prosecutor, Nicholas Antonio Sanchez Rodriguez, would then go to the victim and say, look, to make your case go well, you need to pay me between 1 million and 3 million pesos, depending upon, he'd look at the victim and size up the victim based on, I don't know how much money he thought they had. So somebody goes to report fraud to the government, and the government turns around, or a government representative turns around, and then is ripping these people off even more, kind of charging them bribes to supposedly affect his case. Well, anyway, one of these victims reported this clown, and so now he's going to be in prison himself. So the prosecutor is going to go from putting people in prison to prison himself. So good thing that he got caught. 91-year-old Luis Carlos Sarmientos, one of the richest men. I think he's like the second richest man in Colombia. He heads Grupo Aval, which is a financial holding company. Grupo Aval owns several financial institutions. They own Banco de Bogotá, Banco de Occidente, these are different banks, Banco Popular, Banco Avivillas, Multibank, Corfi Colombia, Porvenir, which is like a fund administrator, in the Dali Financial app. He's retired. He's asked to name his son, Luis, also named Luis Carlos Sarmiento, to the take over as the new chair of the group of companies, the chair of the board of directors. And then Maria Lorena Gutierrez has been appointed to replace his son as the new president of the organization. So hopefully Mr. Sarmiento will have time to enjoy his retirement after heading that company for a while and also growing it. It's publicly traded. It trades also on the New York Stock Exchange and of course in Colombia on the BVC as well. That's Grupo Aval. Now in Bogota, so Mr. Yuan Din Zhao, who worked as a specialized technical operator. So they're trying to build a metro system in Bogota, and that's even, so the project has already been, they already had a public tender process and awarded the contract years ago. But when Petro got elected, he's still now he wants to completely redesign the subway that's already under construction as an above ground subway, kind of like the Medellín Metro that's been there since the 90s. So he wants to stop construction and redesign the whole thing and turn it into a subway underground, even though the construction's already going on. But anyway, the point of this is so that Mr. Yuan Din Zhao works, so that a Chinese concession, Yellow River Construction or something like that. I don't think it's Yellow River. I think they're doing the dam. But anyway, so these guys got caught killing a rooster and sacrificing a rooster at the construction site. They videotaped it. I'll put a link to the video in the notes here. And somebody who recorded this, who wanted to stay anonymous because they don't want any trouble or harassment, but said that, told El Tiempo, the newspaper, that every time they make progress in the work in building the subway, they sacrifice a rooster, but they don't even kill it. They bleed it, so they cut it and let it bleed to death, and they practically torture it. This is a quote here, and begin to spread the blood of the little animal on the structure of the part that is already finished, that the subway is being built. So as soon as they arrive at the place, they have everything ready, meaning that they have a sacrificial, not altar, but they're just ready to do this animal sacrifice to kill this chicken. And then they say a prayer in their language as if giving thanks that the work is progressing as planned. So the construction company that has their workers over from China, one of the things they're famous for is they tend to, rather than hire local construction workers, they bring construction workers over from China. And so they'll finish a piece of the subway, of the metro, and then they sacrifice a chicken and squirt the blood all over the work that they just finished. You can see the link to the actual video. I'm not going to include it in here because a lot of people don't want to see bleeding chickens, and so if you want to see that, then I'll include the link to it's a Twitter post, and they've got the video there. So I'll share that with you. Now, on to this there's a problem in Medellin. Look, if you are a pervert or deviant, don't come to Colombia. Unfortunately, I think due to this is my opinion, is that the previous mayoral administration in Medellin did not pay attention to this or prioritize this. But unfortunately, the tourism in the post-pandemic era got to be, Medellin started to attract the wrong kind of tourists. Medellin is a lovely city. It's a great place to live. There is a relatively vibrant nightlife scene compared to some other cities in Colombia, but it really became a victim to a certain extent of its fame. And even though it's a great family-oriented place, it's a great place for families, it's a great place. A lot of retirees are moving to Medellin. The weather's always nice, but it's also started to attract these kind of sex bros, or these basically sexual predators, or even some people maybe don't even rise to that limit, but they're kind of freaks, I guess you could say, or people who are into kind of, what's that? They used to say, sex and drugs and rock and roll kind of thing, right? And so I remember there was that in the 70s and the 80s, it was like this big controversy of the rock and roll lifestyle. And you had these performers who were going crazy, doing all kind of nutty stuff. But anyway, it started to attract the wrong kind of tourism. And now the new mayor is cracking down. It's gotten the attention of the federal government. It's gotten attention of U.S. authorities. I know that U.S. authorities, they're meeting with people, including me. I've met with them, and they're taking this seriously, and they're making moves as well. So this is the kind of thing. So don't. And they're cooperating fully with the Colombian government. I know other governments are too. I mentioned the U.S. because as a gringo, as somebody from the U.S., I just know what's going on there. But anyway, I know that other governments are doing this as well. Dominick DiVincenzo, a U.S. citizen, was caught making child pornography in Bello, which is a blue-collar, low-income suburb of Medellín. He was caught red-handed by authorities. He's going to prison in Colombia, and he's already locked up, and that's not going to go well for him. I can tell you that in prison. Another American citizen. I don't know why the authorities didn't release his name. Here's a picture of him, but he went by El Químico, or the chemist. 48-year-old American was caught manufacturing methamphetamines and giving it to children and making them do porn. The Colombian government has a lot of witnesses, and he's already caught and locked up. Last week, Timothy Allen Livingston from the Cleveland area was caught red-handed with a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old, but he was due to, I think, police incompetency, was able to flee before the prosecutor. So in Colombia, I think a lot of places like a habeas corpus. So you're arrested, but then you've got to be charged with something. And if you're not charged with something, then they can't just hold you, okay, for legal process. So basically, on a technicality, he was released from custody and immediately fled back to the United States. But President Petro has gotten involved in this. This has caused a national outrage. And the president of Colombia has already said that he's going to ask for the extradition of Mr. Livingston back to Colombia to face justice. Now, he has not, I haven't seen where he's actually been charged yet. Everybody, of course, they say is innocent until proven guilty, but this guy, according to reports, was caught. They had used condoms everywhere, illegal drugs everywhere. This 12-year-old and 13-year-old were taken into custody. They were caught there. So legally you're innocent until proven guilty, but they caught this guy red-handed. And so the U.S. government does cooperate with the Colombian government. There is a bilateral extradition treaty, and the U.S. has shown willingness to extradite Americans to Colombia. There were some other perverts that got caught last year and extradited from the U.S. To Colombia to face charges. And if you ever seen that show Locked Up Abroad, the Colombian jails are, U.S. jails are bad, especially penitentiary and medium security prisons and above. But Colombian jails are a whole different level. And especially they don't like sexual predators, especially anything that has to do with child porn or anything like that. So they're going to have a time in jail. So anyway, that's the news update for you. Remember to practice critical thinking, stay mentally and physically active, and above all, be kind to yourself and others. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Oh, leave any comments about anything that we've talked about today in the comments section. I'm always glad to hear from you. Let me know what you think. Let me know your opinion on some of these things. And remember, of course, to subscribe so that you receive these updates on a regular basis. So thanks a lot and take care.